Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft blog live stream. Rob Staton and Robbie Williams here. Robbie has been watching the combine from Indianapolis. He's going to be heading over to watch the big day. For me, this is the big day. The quarterbacks are going to be working out with the receivers and the tight ends. Very excited to see what the big three are going to be doing today. Bryce Young is not going to be throwing, but CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis are all going to be throwing. Robbie is very lucky in that he gets to see this in person.
It's true.
And then come on to the stream tomorrow and give us his thoughts. But Robbie, I gave my thoughts on the defensive lineman yesterday. We're going to talk a bit about day two as well before looking ahead to the quarterback class. And I've got some big things to say about the quarterbacks and stuff like that. But first and foremost, what is your impression of what we've seen so far? Who has impressed you?
Sorry, I just saw this comment. I have the smallest shoulders and the largest head of all time. Well, I appreciate that though. I don't know what's happening. Maybe it's the angle of the background. Listen, I have this background going right now because I haven't cleaned my desk in a while, so it's a little embarrassing. That's why it's there. So I mean, honestly, so I didn't make it to the combine yesterday. I was really busy, so looks like I didn't miss much. I did go back and watch some of the tape last night on it, and I kind of want to start out with just the Brian Branch stuff because I feel like sometimes we can analyze maybe the combine in general and traits and such. But like if you go back and I wanted to watch more of his tape because I've been a big fan of him, so I wanted to go back and watch. And I watched a little bit, and I just see a guy who you said it right. He's like got some can't swivel his hips well. Maybe he has some angle, but he takes angles really well. He seems like he's really smart between the ears. So I think that's kind of like what he brings to the table. Like same thing, kind of. I'm not comparing him to Richard Sherman. I'm just kind of saying like that kind of like he may not have that same athletic ability, but he has the ability to, make the plays. He makes good angles in the run game, makes good angles in the pass game. So but it's disappointing to see kind of like I thought for sure he'd be much better kind of, during this. So to see that was a little disappointing. Some of those cornerbacks are super, super fast. I mean, that was it's nice to see that there's good depth there and that we have the ability to, I see quite a few people have, predicting us to draft a, corner either pretty early, but it doesn't seem like something we do. And the fact that the depth is there makes sense to not go in that direction.
Can I come in on Brian Branch?
Go ahead.
Because I think it's a very interesting player to talk about. You've mentioned his field IQ and his football IQ, and that's something that the main draft pundits have been the ones who will speak regularly to scouts, who will bump into the scouts in Indianapolis. That has been a common refrain from all of them, that he is very, very intelligent, that his knowledge of the game is very good. It's not a big surprise, being coached by Nick Saban, and his personality and him as a player, very good. I really like him. I'm mocking him to number 10 to Philadelphia. I will not be mocking him to number 10 to Philadelphia next week. I just cannot get my head around how average he looked as an athlete, Robbie, sort of running around that field. It's not even just a 4.58 40, which is, they're on the NFL Network. I do feel like they're putting out duff information, really. They were saying, what's a good time, what's a good split, and all of this. And they were using averages. And I don't ever like to use average times to determine whether someone's good or not. And they were saying stuff like, oh, that's a good time when a safety's running a 4.55. Has anybody watched the NFL, in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years? Speed on that second level is so important. We're going through an era where the modern day 245-pound linebacker who basically just hammers people and makes tackles is no longer attractive. And we've seen the Eagles make the Super Bowl with two linebackers who are basically 225, 230 pounds, and they're quick. Now, if that's what we're going with the linebacker position, we have to sort of feel that way about the safeties as well. I think you do need to be quicker than some of these guys we're testing. I thought a lot of the safeties looked big, very muscular, built guys. And Brian Branch, for me, running a 4.58, and he is somebody who played nickel a lot at Alabama, and if he's going to play that role at the next level, I'd be concerned about that speed. And I want to go back and look at the tape, Robbie. I want to go and see if Alabama are masking some of that, whether they're putting him in a position because of the wealth of talent they've got on defense, whether they're putting him in good positions to read and react and use that football intelligence rather than putting him in a position where he has to go and cover somebody in a tight spot, or he has to sort of run deep. I want to go and see whether they actually got the best out of what he is, an intelligent football player, versus some of those issues with athleticism showing up. Because when he was doing the transitions, when he was doing the back pedal, when he was trying to operate in space there, Robbie, I was looking at him and thinking, this guy ain't a first round pick. And that was a surprise to me. I thought he was going to look a lot better than that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was a little disappointed to see it as well, but I still think that the football IQ puts guys in position to, and maybe you're right, maybe Alabama masked some of his, some of his weaknesses by putting him in great positions, but he still seems like a really solid football player, and maybe he drops out of the first round because of this, and maybe that benefits the Seahawks in a way that they can grab him in the second round or something. I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop into the second. But with that being said, moving on to day one, I thought, man, Kalijah Kancey for me is just the guy. Like, I just love that guy. Ever since you brought him up early in the season, I've fallen in love with that guy. And I don't care how small he is. I don't care what his wingspan is. I want to see you put the tape on, you just see the guy who gets it. And I really liked him. Nolan Smith had a big day as well for the linebackers. I feel like he had a really big. I mean, there was no surprise that he was going to put on a show, right? Like, I mean, he's a physical athlete, but just like I felt like he even went above and beyond what I thought. And someone here, Hawks fan, just said it. I mean, Will McDonald. If you can get, I mean, I would consider trading up from 20 to get it if you could, because I think he's going to go earlier than that.
Interesting. We've got some super chats coming in. This one is from Peter. Keep it up, lads. Peter, thank you for your support. $5. Thank you very much. If you have super chats, please send them in. It is the best way to get a question. Now, I wondered whether what the speed of the live chat was going to be yesterday, and it was quite busy, and we were only able to get through questions from super chat. So it is the best way to get a question in there, or if there's a statement you want to make, if you've got an observation from the combine that you want to make, super chat away. We will come to those as soon as possible. And 12th man at North says, if Bruce Young, Bryce Young, but Bruce, I like the fact I might call him Bruce Young from now on. If Bryce Young is the QB left at 5, do you feel more comfortable taking him after the official 5'10", 204 pounds weigh-in? Great work as always, lads. I mean, I felt comfortable taking him anyway. If that's the worst case scenario, that Robbie, you have, let's say, 3 quarterbacks, Levis, Richardson, and Stroud in any order, and then let's say Will Anderson going in the top 4, and then you had a choice on Bryce Young, I'm comfortable with that. I wouldn't take Bryce Young ahead of Anthony Richardson, and I wouldn't take him ahead of Will Levis because of the size. But I'm also not opposed to the Seahawks saying, we're going to see if this guy can make it work. I think he's got a lot going for him. The fact that he's got nearly 10-inch hands, Robbie, is a bit of the Russell Wilson thing going on again there, where, yeah, he's 5'10". I've got the measurements here. 5'10" and 1/8, so he's smaller than Russell Wilson, but 9 3/4-inch hands, which is a good thing for him in terms of that size. Big hands despite the size. I think the thing that we have to remember here, and the media's already, Bryce Young's agent, I don't know who it is a good agent, Robbie, because all of the media people, the Tom Pelisseros, Ian Rappaport, all of the big names, they're all tweeting away that he's 204 pounds. Like, they might as well put a huge back. Have you seen The Dark Knight Rises, Robbie?
Yeah, of course.
So, when Batman lights that, when he says, light it up, and he puts the thing on the floor and that trail goes, and then the bat signal appears in flames on the building. I feel like someone's going to do that. They're going to light it up. And it's going to say Bryce Young, 204 pounds on the side of Lucas Oil Field, because they're making that much of a deal about it. What we have to remember here is that Bryce Young was probably under strict instructions last night to have a whole pizza and maybe some lasagna to follow, and then not go to the toilet between now and his weigh-in, and just wait until after the weigh-in, and then you can go and unload your bowels, Bryce Young. And on top of that, he will have been handed the biggest jug of water, possibly 2 jugs of water, so that when he gets up there, he can be as heavy as possible. That is how the sausage is made. And he will be having the biggest piss of his life, and probably the best piss of his life, within 5 minutes of that weigh-in. And you better believe that the teams are going to be going up to him after the workout going, could you just jump on the scales again, Bryce? You know, could you? And they'll go, no, I'm not doing that. And if he has official visits, he will have official visits. When he has official visits, Robbie, I suspect that teams will be asking him to be weighed again, and he may well turn down that opportunity to do it once more. This is how it is. He is not 204 pounds. He is not going to play at 204 pounds. He is going to play at a max of 190 pounds. You have to balance in your own head whether you're comfortable with that. That's what it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I also think like the fact that he did kind of weigh in at similar to Kyler Murray, I think I think it might give teams a little more comfort, like picking that high on him. I mean, he has all the talent in the world. It's just that size is the issue. But I mean, the same thing was said about Russell Wilson, and it sure didn't shy, Arizona from drafting Kyler Murray. So there's a good. This is a good an opportunity for a team to like really evaluate now whether or not they want to take him earlier. And if he's available at 5 and in the scenario that you just brought out, like the top 3 quarterbacks are gone and Will Anderson is gone, then yeah, I would feel comfortable taking Bryce Young at 5. I mean, he has the talent. You have to weigh the weight thing, and you can't weigh the weight thing just to make sure that that's something that you're comfortable with. And I think teams will be okay with it. I mean, young or like small quarterbacks are getting drafted higher, so I think it's an opportunity to kind of just see where he's at. I'm a little disappointed he's not throwing today, but it makes sense.
It makes sense in terms of what his advisors have done to make it seem best, Robbie, but it pisses me off because I think, frankly, it's a cop-out. And I'm a bit, this is the one thing that I was thinking, you can't take somebody off your board because they try and mask a weakness or a disadvantage that they have. And I get that. And teams aren't going to be doing that. But there's just something so massively disappointing to me, Robbie, with the number of people who've come out and gone, I won't be running a 40 because I've just tweaked a hamstring. And we saw it with Devon Witherspoon yesterday. He was being interviewed by the NFL Network. He looked like he couldn't even breathe without his agent saying, and now you take a breath in, and now you take a breath out. At one point, he was asked by the reporter, Stacey Dales, what are you expected to do at your pro day? What can we expect from you? I don't know how to answer that. My agent, that was his answer. And you're thinking, what's going on here? Like, can the agents just maybe back off a little bit? And Bryce Young's come out and gone, I won't be throwing because I had an injury months ago. And I don't want to throw at the combine because of that. And I'm sorry, but you threw for like 7 or 8 games at the end of the season, perfectly fine. There's no issue with your arm in that Kansas State bowl game at the end of the season. Get out there and throw. It doesn't matter. Nobody expects you to look like Anthony Richardson. No one expects you to look like Will Levis. Get out there and compete. Go and throw. Go and show us what you can do. But because he's obviously not got a cannon of an arm, as Will Levis has told everybody he has at his media session. He's hiding in the long grass. He's basically come to Indianapolis for interviews and a fake weigh-in, basically. It puts me off. Anthony Richardson's coming out there. Yeah, I'm 244 pounds. Give me a damn football. That's what I want to see when we get to Indianapolis. So I think he should have thrown. I think the agents are being overprotective, over delicate. Let these guys go and practice and test and compete. And he's a good thrower of a football. It's not as if he's got a bad arm. Anyway, we will get back onto the quarterbacks. We've got a lot to say there with the quarterbacks. We're going to come back onto this. Quickly back onto yesterday, Robbie. I thought it was a really boring session. I think that we even to hear Daniel Jeremiah and Rich Eisen criticizing the length of the defensive back drills on the NFL Network was staggering. And last year, I can remember voicing a number of complaints about this. They just go on too long. And I wondered what it was because the drills were it was 2.5 hours of testing and drills. To me, it was completely unnecessary last year. It carried on again this year. We found out that it's just the assistant coaches insisting that their personal drills are undertaken, Robbie. And as a consequence of this, they're finishing so late at night. I think only 9 cornerbacks ran a short shuttle because they finished so late. And I think 3 safeties ran a short shuttle. 3. But why you're asking them to do it at 10 o'clock at night? It's preposterous. Either move the event back to its original time, not because there was nothing prime time. I said on the blog yesterday, if that's prime time entertainment, what we saw yesterday, then so is somebody taking the contact lenses out. It's just not interesting enough to warrant ruining your own event. And for me, Robbie, they need a Jim Nagy style person, an ex-scout, an ex-GM, somebody along those lines to come in, organize, run the combine as a full-time job so that when you get there, everybody's testing, everybody's getting done what they need to do, getting a proper schedule, because for the last couple of years, it's been a mess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm worried they're heading down the direction. I think I just saw, maybe it was today that I saw the article. Yeah, that they're like the NFLPA is questioning whether the combine's even relevant anymore and something they might want to push to get rid of. So I'm hoping that's not the case. Hopefully they just change the direction of it because, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, if 10 o'clock at night and guys are just opting not to do it, then what's the point, right? No one's going to stick around and watch 3 safeties do it. It's not good entertainment at all.
I don't think they'll ever get rid of it because I think it's too valuable for the teams to be in the same place at the same time. And the medical information that you get is crucial. It's pivotal to everything that they do for the draft. The NFLPA may want to get rid of it, but the teams certainly won't. But if you're going to have a combine, have a combine. You know, like 6 years ago, Robbie, we could sit here and one of the best things to do was to pour through a set of defensive lineman short shuttle times and go, okay, this is what we've learned about this class. I mean, it's indicative now that the few that actually do it. I was listening to somebody praising Jack Campbell running a short shuttle, the linebacker from Iowa, in the media, saying what a great time, a 4.29. It's a good time. It's not a great time. You know, it's not in the 4.0s, 4.1s. Cody Barton ran in that range. Ben Burr-Kirvin ran in that range. So it's not an amazing time, but because he just happened to be one of the few did it and it was the fastest time, we're suddenly acting like he ran a Nick Bosa short shuttle or a Von Miller or a Khalil Mack. You know, it's okay. You know, it's good. It's not amazing. And we need to get back to, prioritizing those drills. The short shuttle needs to be prioritized as much as the 40. For me, Robbie, you do a 40, you go and do a short shuttle. That's the way. And then you do your on-field drills. Set this up so that the players have to do it. And incentivize it so the players have to do it. That's what I want to see to get the most out of the combine. The Snail says, with the 83rd pick, the Seattle Seahawks take Dayan Henley, future Super Bowl MVP. Go Cougs. Maybe his fandom is influencing that super chat, but the Snail, thank you very much. What did you make of Dayan Henley, Robbie? I thought he had a decent workout. I don't think that I didn't come away from it feeling like I have to see this player in Seahawks Navy next year. But at the same time, I think he is a potential option for Seattle, perhaps at the end of day 2, like the Snail suggesting, or even at the start of day 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued, definitely intrigued by him. As a Huskies fan, Snail, I have a hard time rooting for us, but hey, we got Abe Lucas, so I'm okay with that as well. But listen, I think he's got potential. I think he has, the ability to come in and make some plays for us. And we need a refresh. I think at the linebacker position, I think he would be a good player for us to select. And I mean, yeah, I don't think he had a great day yesterday, but he certainly didn't have a bad day. I think he's a player that I think they're definitely have their eyes on, and I think they interviewed him as well. So I think it's a player to definitely keep your eye on. I think that could be a future Seahawk for sure.
Yeah, it's very competitive, very quick, very competitive. Showed at the Senior Bowl. Excellent coverage. I would suggest people go and dig out Dayan Henley's coverage snaps from the Senior Bowl. They're on Twitter, they're on YouTube. You can see how good he was, that quick change of direction, that subtle ability to stick in coverage. Very important for a linebacker if you want him to drop and stuff like that. Very important. I just wonder whether he can take on blocks at the next level, whether he is going to just get blown up. And I can't, as you can't, Robbie, put up with another season like Cody Barton's rookie year. I can remember it like it was yesterday when Aaron Rodgers dumped him on his arse. Aaron Rodgers ran up to Cody Barton and planted him on his backside. I will never forget that. And I don't want to see that from another linebacker in a Seahawks uniform ever again. A couple of super chats for you. There's a few other defensive backs I want to bring up. Corey says, no thanks on Young. Availability is the best ability, and he's already coming in slightly injured from college already. Fair point from Corey there. And got a big. I want to get into it with you, Robbie, on quarterbacks in a bit. So I'm looking forward to that. Got to preview what's happening today. And the Volcano Kid says, awesome content and great work. So excited for this offseason and draft. Can we just draft in 2 weeks? I don't know if we need it, but super curious about Kali Ringo. Any thoughts? Thank you, the Volcano Kid, for that super chat. Robbie, my opinion of Kali Ringo was I thought he was as stiff as a board when he was running drills yesterday. I thought that his change of direction, his transition, his back pedal, there was the initial wave drill where, you know, he's having to sort of run backwards, back pedal, transition. He looked like he'd never even practiced that drill. And he wasn't the only one. There was a few that were really struggling with it. Wasn't tracking the ball in the air very well. I think with Kali Ringo, he's very clearly good at running in a straight line very fast at his size, and he ran a 4.3. If I was playing Kali Ringo, I would put my quickest receiver across from him and have him running across the middle every single time. And if he's playing in man, he will lose that battle, in my opinion, time and time again. If he's playing in zone, he'll pass it off to somebody else. Maybe he'll create some issues. But if you are playing a lot of man, I think he could be a problem. The Seahawks didn't play a lot of man. They were sort of hinting that they were going to do that last year. They played 3 times as many zones. So I don't know whether it's a big issue. Maybe he will appeal to Seattle. But for me, Robbie, he's a big project. And I just wonder whether he's too big to play outside safety and have any kind of real success.
Yeah, so for me, I worry about the amount of penalties he got. If I remember correctly, he had like 9 or 10 this last season. So I think like that could be a problem for me. I think he holds a lot, and that could be a problem. I mean, he seems pretty good in the back pedal, but like you said, I mean, it's if you get a fast receiver on him and they blow just right by him, can he get his hips around, turn and run with that guy? I'm not sure. And maybe a later round, I wouldn't take him early.
Yeah, I'd probably take him if he had a fall, and I wouldn't anticipate it, you know, to round 3 or something like that. Maybe there's just other players that I'd rather take, you know, in the kind of range where he's going to go. And I think this is a problem, Robbie, across the league. You kind of have to be. I think speed and agility is so important. And I love Julius Brents. Interviewing him just filled me with joy. I just thought, what a great guy, and I think that he will blow teams away with his personality. He's incredibly explosive, and he ran a decent 40 for his size at 4.53. The one thing that concerned me, Robbie, was his ability to sort of cover the middle when quicker receivers get into him and then try to separate or run anything beyond just a go down the sideline. I worry about that. But then he runs a 6.66 or something. I think it was like something like that. 3 cone and a 4.05 short shuttle. And I think, okay, it's probably just a technical thing. He probably just needs proper coaching in the same way that Tariq Woolen did. And he's somebody who really interests me now. I think I can really imagine him across from Tariq Woolen. And if you were to give me the choice of Ringo or Brents, I'd probably go with Julius Brents. But then some of these other defensive backs, Robbie, there was a lot of speed out there. DJ Turner, I think his best football is ahead of him. It might have to be in the slot. There were some instances at Michigan where he did just get beat towards the end of the year. But running a 4.26 the same time as Woolen, a likable person, competitive, perhaps just a bit undersized, but I think he could end up having a big career. I thought Deonte Banks looked, wow, just look at the size of him, Robbie. I mean, we're talking about the safeties being big now, big, thick arms, shoulders that I'm very jealous of. You know, just incredibly well set individual. And then he's running a 4.35. And he was a player who, I like the fact that you talked about not reacting too much to the combine at the start and in terms of your grading and how to budge players up and down. And I will talk a bit more about that in a second. Deonte Banks was somebody who I needed to see test. I couldn't get an angle for him. I couldn't decide what is his upside. I see things that I like, but his production's not very good. I want to see him playing the ball a little bit more. So how much upside has he got? And then he runs a 4.35 and he jumps the way they did. And I think, okay, you can work with that. You know, you can coach him up to play the ball better. maybe it's the scheme, maybe it's just the way he's been taught. I think there's a lot of potential there, Robbie, with a player like that, and I think he could easily go in the first round now as a consequence of that. Darius Rush, I think, is another player had some issue. He had some great snaps at the Senior Bowl, and I think he had some slight issues as well. And that running a 4.36, great for him. Christian Gonzalez ran very, very well. He's always been a top 20 pick, and that was absolutely confirmed. And could even here's the thing, I think, Robbie. I think some of these cornerbacks could end up going in the back end of the top 10, just because they're quick, they're athletic. It's a premium position, and some of these defensive linemen, Robbie, are either not testing, or they're underwhelming, or they've got issues off the field, like Jalen Carter. So I could see maybe is it beyond the realms of possibility that a Christian Gonzalez, a Deontay Banks, a Joey Porter could end up going a bit earlier than people think, because we keep seeing it, don't we, Robbie? Cornerback is a position that is drafted very early.
Yeah, well, I think you're right on Gonzalez. I mean, like that guy, he just kind of blew up the whole combine. I feel like he was expected to test well, and he just proved like that he's going to be worthy of a top pick. So yeah, I mean, these corners are going to go a little earlier, and I think you're right with the way some of the D line has handled and just the nature of the draft and player like best player available, you're going to go with that. So I could see a scenario where a lot more corners go earlier than people are expecting.
Just had a super chat from PA.
That's a big one.
It's no, I PA, thank you so much for that. It says, Rob, been a reader since you started SDB, but never posted. It's the best Seahawks content on the internet, hands down. I just wanted to express my appreciation for all the work you do to bring us such great content. As Hawks fans, we're lucky to have you. Listen, I cannot say how much that means to see such a generous super chat there. And I thank you so much for those kind words, PA, because there's been times over the last few years, Robbie, and you and I have talked a lot about this, where the sort of the finishing your day job, coming home and sticking 6-7 hours in tape study or writing or whatever like that, or doing these streams has been really tough because of some of the pushback that people get simply for having a different opinion to you. So when you see that people genuinely actually get something out of this, that really means a lot to me. I can't tell you how that's made my day, frankly.
Yeah, listen, PI, I appreciate it as well. We don't get paid to do this, and you guys, I don't even know if you realize the amount of shit Rob gets for just having an opinion. Like, it's crazy. I mean, even I get it sometimes, and I've got like 12 followers on Twitter. So like people will just randomly seek me out and be like, you're an idiot, and just like, when they start bringing your kids into it and things like that, it's crazy. So, I mean, it does mean a lot when we see these kind of things. And so, yeah, I just really appreciate it. And him and Rob and I have talked, off air about like, sometimes like we wonder, is it worth it? Is it worth the amount of people putting our family into this kind of thing and saying things? So, it's appreciated, like highly appreciated when we see these kind of things. So thank you, PA.
Yeah, thank you so much. So just to finish off on the defensive backs, the safeties, Robbie, I've already mentioned, they were very big. It was a big group. I mean, it was weird, really, because the session started off, and I thought the 40 runs from the safeties were amongst the most boring things I've ever watched at a combine. There's not that much to get you going, no headlines. The drills started, and the coaches were visibly going, come on, let's have a bit of noise. There's a bit of energy amongst this group, which is exactly what happened a year ago. It makes me wonder, why do we keep seeing this with the defensive backs? Can the coaches not just get into them a little bit? Joey Porter was in the stands. Can't Joey Porter come down and give everybody a speech or something, before everybody starts? I know they've had Prime's been there. Obviously he's a bit busy now with Colorado, but do they need to get somebody like that on the field just to sort of lift everybody's spirits and get them geeing everybody up? Because once they actually got going, the safeties, I thought they looked quite good in terms of they were changing direction, Robbie, in the open field. I thought a bit better than some of the cornerbacks. Even some of the bigger players, like I thought Jair Brown, who didn't test anywhere near as well as expected. His change of direction and his transition, and getting his body swiveled around with his hips, and then running to the sideline, finding the ball in the air. That was a lot better than some of the faster, smaller cornerbacks. Sidney Brown did a good job. I thought Jartavius Martin really caught my eye for the way that his body looked, very muscular, thick. ran a 4.46, but had a 44-inch vertical. I just looked at him and thought, wow, I could imagine him playing in the nickel. I thought Jacorian Bennett with the cornerbacks, by the way, looked like a really good nickel option as well. I mean, they may look to bring some competition in there. I still think Kobe Bryant is better playing outside, Robbie, and being competition there than playing inside. So I would be interested in the nickel. So I think my final takeaway, Robbie, would be very deep, very quick cornerback class. Every opportunity for Seattle to get a cornerback in the range that they generally like, if they want to go in that direction. They might feel if they bring back Michael Jackson that they're okay, and they can kind of address other areas there. But certainly some options there. And I think with the safety class, Robbie, my prediction right now, I just don't think I don't think this is going to be a draft priority for them at all. I don't think they're going to draft a safety. I think they're going to look elsewhere. Unless somebody falls who they just say, we have to have them. A Jair Brown, because of his character, or somebody like that, or a JL Skinner because of the injury that he got, a pec tear right before the combine. If somebody like that falls, opportunism, great. Otherwise, I think they'll pass.
Yeah, well, two things you said. One, I agree with you on the Kobe Bryant thing. I would love to see him on the outside and not in the nickel. I don't think he's a natural nickel by any means. So seeing them go, get a player that could play the nickel position would be, I think, a smart move, and moving Kobe to the outside, and maybe having him compete with somebody else for that position would be great. And then I mean, JL Skinner, man, that injury, I could see the Seahawks really liking him. And I could see him falling because of the injury, and then I could see them taking him and just being kind of that guy that he's just going to have a year to rehab and get healthy, and then it's almost like an extra pick. And the fact that they have some extra picks, I could see that being a scenario they take, and I think they would have liked him prior to the injury too. So that could be a realistic possibility for sure.
It's a good plan, isn't it? Because if they were, let's say, I don't know, I imagine a pec tear, Robbie, will keep you out for some time. I think correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, I get the sense that if that happens, it can take a long time because you use your pec for so much, and you're never going to get back to 100% until that pec's 100% recovered, and you can actually do a lot of the things that you need to do, even just to get in the gym, to do workouts and your strength training. So if he is out for a while, let's say he lasted to round 4, and you could bring him in, stash him. Listen, I don't think Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams are for long in Seattle. In a year's time, you could part ways with one or both of those two, and you could be saying JL Skinner's coming in and he's going to be the starting strong safety. Who knows what's going to happen with Ryan Neal as well, because you can tender him, you can have him for this year. That's very easy to do, but then he's a free agent in a year's time. And he has to prove he can stay healthy and on the field. He throws himself around, Ryan Neal, very good player, but he hasn't been durable. So maybe taking somebody that you can stash if he is available later on could be a really good idea. Corey has messaged in saying DJ Reed tore his pec and came back fairly quickly. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I can only imagine if I think maybe it's just from the sort of the training aspect of it, Robbie. Because Lewis has said it's 3 to 4 months, and
yeah,
that
so
sounds about right.
I had a so for those of you who don't know, I coach CrossFit, so I had a guy was doing bench press from CrossFit, and he tore his pectoral muscle, like completely tore it, and he was back in I think it was about 4 to 5 months. So
yeah, I can't imagine anything worse for somebody who likes to train than tearing that. So we'll hope for the best for him, but if it is 3 or 4 months, it's hard to imagine him going like second round or anything like that, because if he can't, if he's not going to be available, it could be bad. Lewis also says a low grade tear is 4 to 6 weeks. So if it's more on that line and he can get some kind of a workout in before the combine, we may be having a different conversation. But it's a great point by Robbie, though, to sort of stash somebody if available. But I think it's going to take something like that. I just don't think it's a very exciting safety class. It is, however, I think, very exciting quarterback class. And Robbie, I was saying this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. I think this is the best quarterback class that we've seen in years. And I know the media is obsessed with telling everybody what these players aren't or what they can't do or picking at flaws. And one of the big issues I've got is the comparison of players like Bryce Young, who played for Alabama. It's a favorable environment to play at Alabama. And I shouldn't have to explain why again. The number of 5-star recruits you get, they're a powerhouse team. They're always good. They're always loaded. And then CJ Stroud at Ohio State, he's got Paris Johnson Jr. and DeJuan Jones as his bookend tackles, Robbie, they could both go in the first round. You know, he's got Marvin Harrison Jr., who looks like he could play in the NFL and be a top 5 receiver today, let alone in a year when he's in the draft. And then there's all the other weapons that they have at Ohio State. And, you know, we're comparing that to Will Levis at Kentucky, who lost his 2 only good offensive linemen. The right tackle was a turnstile all season. He was hammered constantly throughout the games. He got no weapons because Wan'Dale Robinson had gone to the NFL in the second round. His running back missed 4 games. How can you compare that situation? And by the way, Kentucky, not an SEC powerhouse, having to compete against the SEC powerhouses. And that's not a comparison. And for Anthony Richardson, people just assume, well, he played for the Florida Gators. They'll have a loaded roster. The Florida Gators were like a franchise, you know, like when what's it called? Like a new team, like an expansion franchise. They were like an expansion franchise in the SEC. They were starting from scratch. And Anthony Richardson was a one-man team with the running back who was Travis Etienne's brother, and that's basically it. And when they took Richardson out of the team, Robbie, what did they do in the bowl game? They got the doors absolutely blown off. It was a one-man team, and people are going, but his accuracy and this, that, and the other. Go and watch Dan Orlovsky's short breakdown on Twitter of Anthony Richardson throwing off platform 35 yards downfield as he's about to get hit. And I want to show you something here, Robbie. This is a little video I've put together for Will Levis, because I think the pushback is coming. Because when they've thrown today, and Will Levis and Anthony Richardson have thrown it 70 yards downfield, and you get to see it live, the narrative is going to change. Have a look at this video on Will Levis that I've put together. So there we go. Just a few examples there, which I think, Robbie, really, it's the kind of thing that doesn't get talked enough about Will Levis and people like that. Because the interceptions, some of the decision making, some of the technique, you can definitely sort of look at that and say that's an area for improvement. And Will Levis himself was, I think if people want to watch his combine press conference yesterday, fronted up and said, I've spent a lot of time sort of getting strong physically upper body, but then when he went to go and train with Jordan Palmer, he's been training with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Hendon Hooker and people like that. Whether Jordan Palmer has his camp pre-draft, and he said that I've been working on sort of my core and improving that, so that when I'm throwing and getting my footwork right and stuff, so he's aware of the issues that he has. But that first pass, he has an offensive lineman stood. A 300-pound man is stood on his left ankle, and he's still, despite that, and despite the fact he's about to get absolutely hammered in the chest, he's throwing the ball across the field from the far hash to the opposite sideline, in between 2 defenders, perfectly, with perfect velocity and arm strength. The second throw, he has 5 Georgia defenders in the end zone, bearing down on him, including Jalen Carter. And he's 6 yards. He doesn't panic. He throws a perfect pass. Now, people who watch things like the QB School with JT O'Sullivan on YouTube, JT O'Sullivan said that was a bad throw. He said he was a little bit overthrow, not the most accurate throw that. I would suggest that is one of the best throws that we saw in the college football season. He identified the 1v1 that was against Khalil Ringo, who's going to be a high pick coming up against a no-name receiver at Kentucky. And he took his chance and he threw it in the perfect place so that Ringo couldn't make a play and his receiver could, with 5 big stud Georgia defensive linemen, including Jalen Carter, bearing down on him. It's an amazing throw. And then the final one, look at the poise to stand in the pocket, take the hit, and as his chest is being hit, he has not released the football, and yet the velocity that he generates on that throw perfectly across the middle, which is something that quarterbacks, you have to look for how well they throw over the middle. You just can't teach that, Robbie. And people keep going on and on about this, that, and the other. I've seen the comparisons to Blaine Gabbert, for crying out loud, and Jake Locker and people like this. It's just bollocks. You know, I'm not saying that Levis and Richardson are going to be bona fide, legit world-class stars, but they have as good a chance as anybody to do it.
So people like to focus on the interceptions, and I think that's it. And then I've heard a lot of things. Oh, he's not accurate at all. Go look at okay, so in the SEC, he has one of the highest ratings of any quarterback under pressure completing passes. The guy has the mental makeup to make it. He had a crap O-line. I mean, we got sacked, 60 sometimes? I mean, some astronomical amount. And then people are like, well, Hendon Hooker, look at his stats. He's the guy. No. He plays in a system where he never gets touched. He uses half the field. He's not, I don't know. I just think people like to just look at the stats and then they go down this road of like, well, this is the player because look at his stats. And then this guy throws too many interceptions. I just think you don't look at the intangibles sometimes. And I think people focus sorely on the wrong things and not look at what the guy's actually capable of doing and then the team that they're playing for. Kentucky sucked this year. I mean, honestly, they're absolute garbage. And we saw it in like after week 1, like, oh, this is, and when we had talked about it, because we've been on the Will Levis train for a long time, you look at it and you're like, this team is in trouble and Will Levis is in trouble. I mean, he was getting hammered. So for me, seeing some of these throws and what he's capable of doing, you don't see a lot. I think you look at last year's class, and there's no way. I just think I think you just have to look at it and say this is an opportunity for the Seahawks to draft a potential QB of the future, and I think this guy. I don't even think. To be honest, I don't think he's going to last a 5.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And can I just give you some numbers, Robbie? Because the measurements are coming out now. We've already given you Bryce Young's. What a class this is. I mean, this just validates everything. I don't like to toot our horn that much, Robbie. People will suggest otherwise, but I don't. But we have been consistent with this from months ago, months and months and months ago. And I've had to endure all this nonsense being talked about these guys. Just look at it. Just listen to these. So Anthony Richardson is 6'4". He's 244 pounds, and he's got 10.5-inch hands. 10.5-inch big mitts, throws the ball downfield. Traits. And wait till he works out in an hour and 10 minutes. CJ Stroud, Robbie, 6'3", 214 pounds, 10-inch hands, big hands, traits, gets the ball downfield. Pretty passes, deep passes, athletic, brilliant. Will Levis, 6'4", 229 pounds. Robbie, his hands, 10 and 5/8 inches. His hands are closer to 11 inches than they are 10. Drew Lock's hands are 9 inches. Will Levis, 10 and 5/8 inches. He has enormous hands. He is big, physical, strong. He is of the mold of a Justin Herbert. When Justin Herbert was coming out, he went after Tua Tagovailoa because people looked at Oregon and thought, nah, not seeing it. He's big, he's physical, he's a quality player, and he knows Seattle's scheme. And I agree with you, Robbie. After this event, in my first mock draft, I had Anthony Richardson as the first overall pick, and I had Will Levis as the second quarterback taken. I think we may end up with that being the case, Robbie. And it wouldn't surprise me if the media and the internet explodes. And it wouldn't surprise me if either have any growing pains that there'll be memes like Josh Allen. And then after 2 or 3 years, we'll never have any receipts from those people. Because if these guys land in the right spot, watch out. If one of these guys lands with Frank Reich, watch out. If one of these guys ends up in Seattle's scheme, which Will Levis can master, watch out. You know, they are quality players, Robbie. And while these quarterbacks are showing this, what are the defensive linemen doing? Jalen Carter's got legal issues. He's not going to be drafted in the top 10. Tyree Wilson's still hurt, apparently. Can't do anything at the combine. Maybe he'll test brilliantly at Texas Tech. Personally, I'm kind of over Big 12 defensive linemen being drafted. After LJ Collar and Jordan Brooks, I'm not excited about aged defenders from the Big 12 who are in the mid-20s. I'm kind of over that. And we've got Will Anderson, Robbie, running a 4.60. It's okay. It's a 1.61 split. It's decent. You know, I wouldn't be angry at taking Will Anderson. Great character. But there are three big, physical, exciting quarterbacks in this class. And I want one.
I agree. I'm right there with you. I want one too at 5. I think it's a perfect opportunity.
Why do you think though that Seahawks fans are so against it? Because it's not even just a Geno Smith thing, right? It's not even just I've seen the arguments over and over again online of we don't need a quarterback, we've got Geno, but we don't know that. Nobody knows that. We don't have Geno Smith right now. He's not contracted to Seattle, and even if he is, he's had one good season in his career, Robbie. You've got no assurances there that he's going to go from strength to strength or be able to lead this team to the promised land. You know, why not have the best of both worlds? And the other thing is just a complete unwillingness to accept that the defensive line options in the top 5 are not that great. That the people think that Will Anderson, he's Von Miller. He isn't. He isn't. And in another draft, Robbie, I think he'd probably be like 8th, 9th, 10th overall. Good player, but not absolutely must. There's a stiffness to Will Anderson that you just don't see with the fast, quick. You know, Brian Burns, for example, quick, sudden off the edge. You just don't see that with Will Anderson. It's not really who he is. And if you're really going to argue that Tyree Wilson is worth taking a chance on Anthony Richardson for, or Will Levis, I just can't, or CJ Stroud for them. I can't get behind it. I can't get behind it, Robbie. And it is a bit frustrating that fans just shut themselves off to the idea of taking one of these quarterbacks. What are fans expecting is ever going to be there for Seattle in the next 10 years? This is a rare opportunity. It will be a godsend if one of these quarterbacks lasts. And increasingly, looking at these numbers, Robbie, I think we could see 4 go in the top 4. We could do. That could happen, Robbie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. We could see 4 going. That would be unprecedented, right? But I mean, it's very, very possible. And I think it really comes down to what Chicago does. With the Jalen Carter issue, I think that kind of does hurt us a little bit. I mean, there was the chance that maybe he got taken in the top 5, and then that would push one of the quarterbacks. Now, I think we're more in a position where we're hoping one drops to us, but we're probably, I mean, realistically, we might need to trade up. I mean,
how is a team not going to sell itself on Anthony Richardson after this, Robbie?
I don't know.
I mean, we can
there's talk about him already being the number 1 pick. He hasn't even thrown yet. I mean, there are people who are now projecting him to be number 1 pick, which, by the way,
I was going to say, tell us about what you did.
For those you don't know, he at one point he was I don't remember, it was like 15,000 to 1 odd to be a first round pick. I threw $100 down. If he goes first overall, I get $15,000. So for me, I'm hoping he does go number 1.
Hey, listen, I mean, it's not ridiculous.
It's
not ridiculous. And this is the problem. People don't project, Robbie. When they talk about the draft, they don't project. They look at what do they see now. Anthony Richardson, last 6 games of last season, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Improvement. Was he the finished article? No, it was his first season in college football playing for a bad team. But by the end of the season, you could see improvement. What's he going to look like if he gets a redshirt year in the league? What's he going to look like after his first full season in the NFL, where he will have growing pains? And it may take 2 years. But do you know what? After those growing pains, he could be the face of the NFL. Not just a good quarterback, not just a useful pick. We're talking about the man. We're talking about front cover of Madden. We're talking about billboards in Times Square. We're talking about MVP of the league. That's what we're talking about with Anthony Richardson. That's why he could be the number 1 overall pick. And a GM's job is not to go, wow, against Georgia, he only completed 44.6% of his passes. The job of a GM is to go, can this guy be the best player in the league? Yes, he can. So we're going to make a decision there. There is so much nonsense talked about this group. The Seahawks will be lucky if Levis or Richardson are there at 5. And they should run to the podium if either of them are. And the only player, the only defensive lineman I think they should be considering otherwise is Will Anderson, because of his production in college, because of his character. That's the thing, Robbie. If 4 quarterbacks are off the board by 5, I'm not against Will Anderson as a consolation prize. It's not the end of the world. But boy, wouldn't it just be great to come away with just a thought? Just imagine Anthony Richardson stood there holding a Seahawks jersey. And even if you've got Geno Smith to feel comfortable, like Geno Smith can run the thing this year, and then this guy can take over. I mean, it's an exciting thought. And I hope that Seahawks fans, when they've watched the combine today, will be excited. But I'm not expecting that, Robbie. I was reading an article by Greg Bell earlier today, and his sort of angle on, someone predictably asked Pete Carroll, are you interested in drafting a quarterback early? And he says yes, because what else is he going to say? He's not going to say no in that situation. And everyone's like, see, they're trying to get everybody to buy in to trade up for a quarterback. And I started thinking, why? If Frank Reich at the Panthers says we've got to trade up from 9 to number 5 for this guy, why aren't you taking him? Frank Reich knows what he's doing. The media and the fan base are so obsessed with trying to make out like the Seahawks don't need a quarterback. And I don't understand why. Like, Geno Smith is not Patrick Mahomes. He's had one good year, and he didn't even have a whole good year. The ideal situation is to keep him somehow and then bring in another guy, but bring him in, Geno Smith, that is, Robbie, to the point you can still go and invest in your defensive line. Isn't that the perfect world? But if you can't do that, I'd draft a quarterback, Robbie, bring Drew Lock back and go and get some defensive linemen for me. Geno Smith is not worth blowing up your rebuild for.
So I actually, yes, but I also kind of disagree. I don't think that's the perfect scenario, bringing Geno back for whatever the cost. I mean, maybe if it's a cheaper deal, but I think he's already priced himself out of our price range. With the amount of cap space that we have, I think the perfect scenario, to be honest, would be to draft one of these young quarterbacks and then bring back Drew Lock and let them compete for the role. Now, if it's Anthony Richardson, obviously I don't think we're going to want to start him that early. I mean, if there's a way to bring Geno and have Anthony Richardson, that would be a great scenario, but I don't think it's the perfect scenario. I worry that we're going to have to overpay to keep Geno Smith. And that's my worry. And I don't think John Snyder went into this season thinking we're going to have to repay, or we're going to have to re-sign Geno Smith for an astronomical amount of money, when I don't think he's worth that amount of money. I let him. And here's the other thing. I also don't want them to do what they've already done in free agency, which is just bet against themselves. Let Geno go test his market, see what he's going to be worth. Then they can come back and be like, okay, you want $15 million a year because that's the highest you're going to get from another team. Okay, we'll give you 18 or whatever. Like, do that. Don't just bid against yourself and take and say, well, we're going to pay you 32 because we just think that's the starting rate. Now let them go test the market and see. So far, they've held their own, have said the right things. Yeah, we're doing what we can to get them back, and then we'll see what happens. But hopefully, they're holding their cards close to their chest and not just willing to outbid against themselves.
One thing to remember to keep a close eye on is the Daniel Jones negotiation with the Giants, because what happened 2019, Robbie, the Seahawks were at the combine. Frankie's going to be a Seahawk was the quote from Pete Carroll relating to Frank Clark. John Schneider, we want to keep Frank Clark. He's a priority. He's going to be here a long time. We're going to re-sign him. We want to do this. We want to keep him. As soon as DeMarcus Lawrence reset the market on defensive linemen, everything changed. And they traded Frank Clark because they thought he's now too expensive. They were willing to go to the franchise tag amount, but not into the 20 million, 22 million range for Frank Clark. So they traded him. Daniel Jones signs a contract, and the New York media are suggesting he is about to sign a contract worth over $40 million a year. If Geno Smith then says, well, we have got better numbers than Daniel Jones, and like us, he's had one good season. I mean, obviously the Seahawks can push back and say he's a lot younger. But if Smith uses that as leverage in talks with Seattle, I wonder if a Frank Clark situation emerges where the Seahawks just go, it's just too expensive now. Go and see what you can get in free agency, and we'll talk after that. And I still think that could come around in Seattle's favor, and they could get it done and get a cheap cap hit for this year, have an out next year, and then draft a quarterback. I think that's what I hope that's what will happen. But I kind of came into the combine thinking, yeah, I know Levis and Richardson and Stroud are going to do well, but that's fine. It might just actually turn a few people on towards thinking the same way that we do. Now I'm thinking, okay, I can see the Panthers trading up. I can see the Raiders trading up. I can see 4 going very, very early. And Seattle just being one place out of range for this group. And if that happens, Robbie, I'll be really disappointed because they had the number 3 pick for so long and they would have guaranteed one of those guys. But it is what it is. Right, I want to get through the super chats because I've got to let you go, Robbie, because you've got to get to Lucas Oil Field. Taker610 says, NFC has a dearth of young QB talent compared to the AFC. Taker, thank you for the $2 super chat there. I think there's a couple more. Jed says, I want a QB that can succeed when the blocking and play goes wrong because that's what happens in the NFL. Do you think all 4 QBs can do that? Appreciate you. I think that Anthony Richardson can definitely do that. Great thing about Anthony Richardson, Robbie, is he can sense the pressure coming towards him, change direction, throw off platform. Will Levis can do the same thing. Anthony Richardson can then change direction, break, contain, and then run it 60 yards for a touchdown. Will Levis is never going to do that. Will Levis is more, I can sort of get away from the pressure, and then my strength and arm strength is so good that I can throw from difficult angles. So he's a different player. CJ Stroud showed against Georgia that he can manipulate the pocket, scramble away from pressure, throw on the run. He made some running plays against Georgia. He's not a dynamic athlete. He's probably more of that Patrick Mahomes scrambler, creative, rather than a Lamar Jackson or something like that, or even a Russell Wilson. And with Bryce Young, he showed. Go and watch the Texas game last year, 4th quarter, led a comeback win, and he was breaking, contain, making runs with his legs. Of course, he got hurt. He was hammered, wasn't he, on the sideline trying to scramble away from pressure, and that's how he hurt his shoulder. But yes, they can all do that, and I think Jed's absolutely right. It's a very important factor for quarterbacks. And David says, "Hey guys, doing a great job as per usual. Now this is hard to ask of you, but imagine JS pulled the plug on a trade up to number 1. Who are you taking and why?" It's a great question, David. I think it's probably one that we might be better placed to answer tomorrow on tomorrow's stream because we need to see them throw today. But it's a good question, isn't it? And I think it would be for me whoever throws the best today out of Stroud, Richardson, and Levis. I like them all, and it's not just about today. It's not. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I'd probably have to have a bigger think about that. But those 3 quarterbacks would be in my focus, absolutely.
Well, I'm a little biased, so I would take Anthony Richardson simple for the fact that I would cash in. But no, if I didn't have the money bet, that's a tough one. For me, it would have been Will Levis, but kind of what Rob was saying, the upside of Anthony Richardson gets me excited, and I probably would have never agreed to CJ Stroud until after the Georgia game, and then I watched him in the Georgia game and came away absolutely floored by his ceiling as well. I think he's got all the ability in the world to be an absolute stud of a quarterback in the NFL. So this is a tough one. I would have a hard time. Picking that one right now.
Yeah, I think that if you could get a guy who could legitimately be the best player in the NFL within 5 years, it's hard not to be excited about that. And that's what Anthony Richardson can be. He just needs time. Anyway, it's not just quarterbacks today. Very excited to see the receivers. Josh Downs, particularly, I'm looking forward to seeing. I hope he does everything. Tight ends, keep an eye on the short shuttle times for tight ends. Don't worry about the 40s. It's the short shuttle that matters. I don't know how many of them are going to do it, but the fact that it starts 2 hours earlier than Thursday and Friday's workouts gives me hope that most of them will do a short shuttle. So fingers crossed for that, because that's what matters for the tight ends. Look for speed. Anything 4.4s or under for Seattle on receivers. They do not draft slow receivers. They do not draft guys in the 4.5s until very late, like round 6, 7. 4.4 speed or faster is what Seattle is looking for. And these quarterbacks, Robert, I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow, same time, about your experience at Lucas Oil Field. Enjoy it. Thank you for all your super chats. Absolutely means a lot. Love the numbers that have been watching again today. And we are back tomorrow with another stream, and we'll be reacting to everything we've seen today. And we'll look ahead to the offensive line and running back drills as well, and the combine coverage. SeahawksDraftBlog.com live blog will be starting in less than an hour, probably about 40 minutes time, discussing everything. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. The best draft coverage, best Seahawks coverage on YouTube is right here. Subscribe, like the video, comment in the comment section, even if you've joined in the live chat for the algorithm. We'll see you tomorrow. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for your live blog. Until then, bye for now.